Hi sketchy artists, this is Tiffany Davanzo, and today's tip is about drawing children. The first thing I think about when starting a children's portrait is the age of the child. And this is important because it's going to directly correspond to the proportions I want to use. We've all probably seen a chart like this that compares the size of an infant to the size of an adult head. Or perhaps you've seen one comparing head to body ratio, arm length, torsos, etc. There's a lot of them out there, and it's a great thing. I recommend studying it sometime when you have the time. But for today, let's just focus on the head. So the main thing that changes between birth and adulthood is the midline of our face. When we're young, it's much closer to our eyebrow, and as we grow, it slowly lowers until we're an adult and the midline falls right about our eyes. What this affects is basically the size of the forehead. Infants have really large, curvy foreheads, and over time, that slope changes and straightens out. Another important thing I think it is to remember when working on children's portraits is eyes. So why do kids' eyes look so big compared to adults? They're not actually the same size as a lot of people believe, but when we're born, our eyes are about 70% of their adult size. The main difference is the area of sclera that we're seeing, or that white part around the iris. And in a child, you're going to see much less of that. And so what that does is it makes the iris take up much more of your eye, giving it that really big baby doll kind of look. But when in reality, the actual eyeball itself is about 70% of an adult size. It's just that our eyelids are much smaller. Okay, so my personal technique for drawing children I call X's and O's. And the children are always the O's. So basically, when I draw an adult, I'm looking for all my straight lines, all the angles, all the right turns, everything that kind of gives our faces that definition. Even a curvy structure like the ear, I usually break down into straight lines. I'm comparing the distance between the eyes and the nose and the slope of everything. But when I draw a child, I start really soft. And that's because children just don't have those hard angles that adults do. Their jaws are much less defined, so their face has a much more circular kind of feel to it. So I start off by drawing just a series of circles. And it looks kind of silly. Here I really like to think about what lies under the skin. So I'm thinking about the actual shape of the skull and the eye sockets here, the actual size of the cranium. It gets a little wild sometimes. I'm not too particular because I know that I'm going to come back over and start to refine things. And I still use those kind of circular shapes. And what doing this allows me to do is really keep that softness that children's portraits need. If you start adding too many angles, what you're going to find is you've got a child that somehow manages to look old. It's also helpful having all these underlying circles to kind of help guide you when you're drawing different shapes. And again, see, we're not seeing very much white of his eyes. So once I got the main features in here, I would just reduce this layer down and then go over the top with a final clean layer before I started painting. And that's it. It's all about the X's and the O's when it comes to drawing children and adults. And I hope you'll find this helpful the next time you attempt a child's portrait. Thanks. Have fun.